right, a Supreme smackdown in Arizona. The Supreme Court just ruling that the state cannot require people to prove they're citizens before voting. As Arizona deals with that, the Senate is pushing forward with its massive immigration bill, and that's the one that includes a national ID system. Now, a lot of Republicans demanded that because they argue it will help screen illegals already in this country or ones trying to get in. Now, it's a double-edged sword because the same technology apparently gives Washington yet another way to snoop on folks, which neither party seems to relish. Malia Lazu and Basso and Pavlich. Katie, what do you think of this?
Well, I think with all the NSA information that we have now, I don't really think that it's out of the question to think that the federal government doesn't already have all the information that they want on everyone here in America. Now, that isn't an excuse to give Homeland Security their own huge database. But what I think people haven't talked about here, and what the issue I have is, why are they putting the burden on employers to do the job of verifying legal status when that's really the federal government's job?
What do you think, Rob?
Let me tell you, I'm in the payroll and human resources business, and we try to help our clients comply. But I read a statistic recently that only 7% of American employers are voluntarily using the E-Verify system. But, you know, let's look at the National ID system. This is America. Unfortunately, everybody wants their cake and eat it too. We want to simplify things in government, and I think this is one of those things that will simplify things and actually make things easier for the American people. And for some reason, many people are against it.
Malia?
Yeah, I think it's scary to think about the U.S. creating this national database. As far as the E-Verify, I mean, I agree with Rob. It's really interesting to see how many employers are not opting in to see if their employees are legal. But, you know, this may be something that we can actually all get behind and work together. Maybe Obama should keep doing these things.
I'm worried about that.
You know, but I mean, I think that with the scandals that are coming up, I mean, this is scary. And we know what happens when the government gets too much of our information. I mean, COINTELPRO and the history of the 60s just show how dangerous that can be.
Wait a minute. This is someone of your bent who's saying the government can get too big.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think that what was it when Glenn Beck and ACLU get together? Like,
game over.
Exactly. You know, things have gone far away.
You see big swine.
Right.
But Katie, to that point, and all the points here, that there is, be careful what you wish for. One thing I do notice with various agencies when they have their own ID program or they're all pushing it, we could have a case, I think unlikely, where you have multiple agencies demanding documentation, and they'll be tripping and stumbling over one another.
Right. My question is, why don't they just share one database? I mean,
that
clearly
is way
the FDA,
too easy. Way too easy.
That it's way too easy. They should be sharing more information after 9/11 anyway, but they're not. They all have to have their own systems. But the fact is, the FBI already has one huge database. The NSA has a huge database. Each state DMV has a huge database. I mean, it'd be nice if they could break down the bureaucracy here and maybe just use one to make sure everyone's legal.
Or maybe why don't we come up with another idea of how to handle immigration and finding out whether people are, you know, legal in this country or not. I think that that's really, really important. This is not going to help us.
But in Arizona, the argument was the Supreme Court dropped the ball.
Well, I mean, if you look at Arizona, they're using everything within their power to actually create their own environment so they don't have the problems that they're currently having. They've got huge immigration issues in the state of Arizona, and instead of actually going the legal route, meaning get the laws changed at a federal level, they're using their state's rights to try to actually force the government's hand.
What do you make of the Supreme Court decision, Leo, just as with you, where they said, look, you can't force people to show a driver's license or proof of citizenship or whatever. When I live in New Jersey, I don't know what the rules are nationally, but they ask me proof of who I am. I usually have my license.
Well, right. You know, my grandmother hadn't had an ID for 60 years and had to get one to vote in New Jersey. You know, so I know that different states.
But why is that wrong? You don't. You want to have. It's a sacred right to vote in this country, right? You want to prove that you are.
If you're a U.S. citizen.
I would like to say that I think the importance of the thing about voting is that it should be accessible.
I know, but that also means that it's not a free pass to abuse it, right?
Yeah.
So
no, it doesn't. But it also doesn't mean that it's a free pass the other way to keep people from the polls because you're scared of scary illegals who are lining
How would
up.
showing an ID hurt that?
Well, the first reason why it hurts it is you could call it a de facto poll tax. IDs cost money IDs cost money to buy.
Well, you have to have an ID anywhere you go.
No, actually, there's some really interesting statistics that came out in Wisconsin, if you remember, last year about how I think it was almost 30% of Wisconsin's residents didn't have IDs.
When you vote, you show something that you are who you are.
So, you know, whether you show a gas bill or whatever, this is happening in all of the states.
Katie, what do you think of that? the Supreme Court obviously said, Arizona, you're going too far.
And that is Justice Roberts.
Well, being from Arizona and living in Arizona for more than 2 decades, I understand the illegal immigration problem very well there. And the idea that you don't have to show an ID to vote means that we shouldn't have to show an ID to do anything else. We show an ID to do very arbitrary things like buy alcohol. I think it's more than acceptable that Arizona, which has repeatedly asked the federal government to come in and help them with their illegal problem.
Well, maybe this killed the ID thing.
Which expands to voting.
The ID thing goes away, Rob, right? For everything.
In my mind, Arizona is on the right track. They're trying to police their own problems. The reality is, if we as Americans can't get behind this single ID situation, I think it's going to be challenging.
Well, the NSA thing just killed the environment for this sort of thing, for good or ill.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and I don't think that voting is arbitrary. I don't think that I think that voting needs to actually be accessible. I don't know what great man said, right?
It's a mess. We need an ID to get over the ID phobia.
Neil, we need you. Neil, we need you.
That'll do it here. We'll see you tomorrow.